The show actually does this better than the book. Episode 2 of Heated Rivalry is chapters 9 through 11 in the book. Episode 1 was chapters 1 through 8. So 8 chapters in the first episode. The second episode, only 3 chapters, 9, 10, and 11. Episode 2 opens up on a montage that goes from 2011 to 2013. It shows clips of them texting each other, playing against each other, but we don't get that in the book. In the book, chapter 8 ended part 1, and chapter 9, which is the beginning of episode 2, opens with part 2. And we just get like a line that says 18 months later. We as readers have no idea what happened in that 18 months. So I really like how Jacob Tierney, the director of Heated Rivalry, actually showed us some of those clips of what was happening in that lapse of time that we didn't see in the book. Chapter 9 actually starts with a scene that we do not get in the show. Ilya is flying with his team from Boston to Montreal to verse Shane. We don't see this scene in the show because I don't think they had the budget for a plane. But it gives us a really important conversation with another character in this series, Ryan Price, who is the main character in the third book, Tough Guy. Ilya is talking with Ryan Price on this flight, and we learn that Ryan is super scared of planes and flying, which ends up being like a big theme in his book. So this scene in chapter 9 gives us some background knowledge for the next book, Tough Guy. It also has like a scene between Ilya and Marlo. Marlo comes to talk to Ilya and is like, hey, I'm going out with a girl after our Montreal game. Do you want to come with us and do a double date? Obviously, Ilya has plans with Shane after the game. So he's like, no, sorry, Marlo. Like, I have other plans. So we get some insight into our next book, and we get some, additional character development between Ilya and his teammates, and then just solidifying the fact that Ilya will put everything on hold to be with Shane. After the Montreal game is the stairwell scene that we see in the show. So he goes to that apartment. In the book, though, that is not Shane's home. That is the building that Shane buys just for him and Ilya. If you watched my first video about episode 1, you would know that there's a prologue at the beginning of the book that talks about Shane buys an entire building for him and Ilya to be together because he feels like really vulnerable about having Ilya in his actual home. And he rents out like the first 2 floors, and then he turns like the 3rd floor into a home for them. So in the scene in the show, when he's like, I hired a stylist, and he has like all of those pillows on his bed and stuff, that happens in the book too, but it's because he hires like a designer and stylist to like put together this whole building for him because it's not his house. This is like a separate building that he buys for the sole purpose of him and Ilya. But then he ends up like renting it out, which makes like the show like Mr. Landlord, Mr. Businessman even funnier, because in the book, like he actually is a landlord, which was like a funny tie-in. This scene is also a little different in the book than the show as well, because in the show, this is the first time Ilya is coming to Shane's home, is the first time they're truly together, but that's not the case in this book. They have been together for years at this point because we did not have that flight cancellation that we had in the show. So they've been together for years. In the show, we saw that montage of them just like texting throughout like 2 years and not really meeting up, but that's not the case in the book. They were like meeting up throughout those 2 years and seeing each other and texting each other all the time. So there was no real like gap in their relationship in the book. But in the show, it's a little bit more personal because Ilya is actually coming to Shane's home, where the stairwell scene and everything like that, it's just like Shane's random building. So I think that there's like pros and cons for how they did that in the show versus the book. But I would say like chapter 9 is probably one of the more different chapters in the book than the show. Chapter 10 is the Sochi Olympics. We're in 2014 now. Scott Hunter is finally in the book. I know that there was like a lot of talk in my last video for chapters 1 through 8, where in the show they had inserted Scott Hunter like at the 1221 hotel scene and at the Rookie of the Year awards, and like Scott Hunter wasn't there in the book. Scott Hunter is in the book at the Sochi Olympics with Carter Vaughn, and that whole like figure skating scene happens. Scott Hunter in the book though has blonde hair and blue eyes, so that's very different from the show, but I love Francois Arnaud as Scott Hunter, so I love that change. The Sochi Olympics like tension between Shane and Ilya is the same. Like Ilya doesn't want to talk to him, which obviously is like really throwing Shane off. It's a little different in the book though, because in the show this especially throws Shane off because they were like just together with like the whole stairwell scene, which was like obviously a big moment for their relationship. But that wasn't the first time in the book. So that kind of like wasn't a point of tension for Shane. What made it, I feel like, even worse in the book was in the show they had like years where they like didn't really see each other. They were just like texting. But in the book, they like consistently saw each other and were together all the time. There was like no break in the relationship. So I felt like that part made it even worse. One big difference in chapter 10 is when Ilya goes to see his dad and then like goes to that like ball political thing in Russia. In the show, we see him with Svetlana and then like his former flame, who was like the coach's son, Sasha. We see like that bathroom scene in the show. In the book, him and Svetlana are not like childhood friends. He doesn't even know Svetlana from Russia. They meet in 2013 at a Lamborghini dealership because like in the book, Ilya is like obsessed with like fast cars, fancy cars, sport cars, and him and Svetlana like meet at a car dealership when he's like trying to buy a car. So by the Sochi Olympics, him and Svetlana have only known each other for a year. And her dad is like a goalie in the book, and he played for Boston, and like their family is Russian, but like he doesn't like actually know Svetlana from Russia or anything. So that like whole like bathroom scene and like Sasha and like Svetlana being there, like none of that happens. It's just like family drama. We see like that his dad's like Alzheimer's is progressing, and you know, like we see like those moments and like the tension of like all of this like weight on Ilya's shoulders about his family and like obviously Russia. So we see that, but there's none of the other stuff. And then it goes into chapter 11, which is them presenting at the NHL awards together, which happens like very much the same in the book as it does in the show. In the book, it is a little different because, like I said, they haven't been talking from like the stairwell scene to the NHL awards, which is like 6 months, I believe, where in the show, oh my gosh, they went like 2 years without being together. Like, yeah, maybe they were like texting, but like no big deal. But in the book, that's not the case. Like they were constantly texting, constantly seeing each other. There was like never any break in the relationship. So like now they haven't texted even in 6 months, and Shane's like, what the heck? Like what has changed? Because in the book, like that's even more strange and rare than it is in the show. So the presenting happens the same, and then Ilya wins the MVP, and then we get like the penthouse scene and stuff, and we still get like the, you know, we didn't even text, anything like that. We do get Shane's inner thoughts during the penthouse scene, and both the boys, Shane and Ilya, throughout the entire book, keep being like, I need to end this. I need to stop this. Like, this is my last time, or like, I'm going over there to end this. And then like, obviously they never do. At this moment, like Shane realizes like how desperate he is for Ilya, and it like really scares him because like he obviously doesn't think Ilya feels the same way. And we do kind of see like that emotion at the end of episode 2 as well. So I feel like both of chapter 11 and episode 2 end with, oh, Shane.